More than 50,000 IDF veterans wounded and disabled during their service in the country currently live in Israel. Throughout the month of November, special events will be held around the country to recognize and support IDF disabled veterans and victims of terror in a campaign led by the Friends of the Tzahal Disabled Veterans Organization. The activities will culminate on the National Appreciation Day on November 21st. The Tzahal Disabled Veterans Organization provides a network of support and services to IDF disabled veterans and their families. Reporter Nomi Segel heard more from Dana Pinchasov, who herself was critically wounded in a bus bombing during her military service in 1996. She spoke about her own recovery process and how she has devoted more and more time to volunteer work, including a program she started several years ago to provide a summer camp experience abroad for children of disabled IDF veterans.
I'm 47 years old. I was injured almost 26 years ago in a bus bombing in Jerusalem while I was a Border Patrol police medic, which actually makes me two of a kind. I'm a war veteran, I'm a disabled war veteran, and I am a victim of terror. As I said, I was injured 26 years ago in a bus bombing in Jerusalem in 96. I lost conscious almost immediately. I was awake for a horrible few seconds, witnessing my own skin burns. And I woke up in the hospital 10 days later, and I didn't know how I got there and what actually happened to me. It turns out that everyone thought I was dead, and when they took out the dead bodies, they realized I was somehow alive. I was rushed into the hospital, and no one had any hopes for me surviving, but I woke up, and step by step, I started returning to life. I was severely burned from my waist down, and I had a whole lot of blast injuries to deal with. And I had to learn everything again, to walk, to talk, to eat, to smile. And I had an amazing group of family and friends surrounding me. But I was alone in that process. I had to, with friends, with family, with everyone, I had to go through day by day by myself, making myself do stuff. I was out of the hospital. It took, with rehabilitation, about 6 months. And I fought my way back into the Border Patrol. I was a medic. I got married a few years later. I have 4 kids today. My oldest is an officer in the Army, my biggest proud. And I retired from the police when I was 27 years old, with 2 babies at home and 4 walls to look at. And I had no idea how to move on from that spot. And I had no support system that understood what I was going through. I was a young woman, disabled, and I could stay at home and just be that. But I felt closer and closer to my community, to the disabled veterans, first of all here in Jerusalem and then countrywide. And I started doing more and more volunteer work within that community and hearing new stories, heroes' stories every day of people who went through the worst that can happen and overcome in amazing ways, made me even more proud to be a part of that community and even more devoted to doing for that community. About 8 years ago, I started a program as a volunteer, and I'm taking kids of disabled veterans to a 4-week summer camp experience in Canada with our Friends Association in Canada, Beit Halochem Canada. I'm doing a lot of volunteer work with Beit Halochem, with ZDVO, Tzahal Disabled Veterans Organization, because I feel there are heroes there. People, there is the Memorial Day for the one who lost their lives on protecting this amazing country. But somehow along the way, people forgot those who paid a horrible price and lost a limb, an arm, a leg, an eyesight, or their soul for the rest of their lives. And they and their families have to deal with it. So having an appreciation day for those who gave so much out of their own is something that should have been done years ago.
When you say that you felt alone in this, yet you found this community of disabled veterans who provide support for each other, but what about institutionally? Was there no support aside from the physical recovery? What about the emotional support? It's certainly something that's been much talked about in this past year.
In this past year,
but
I was injured 26 years ago, and post-traumatic stress disorder wasn't something that people talk about. If you have it and you whisper it, you talk about it quietly with your therapist, but you don't flag it. Back then it was no reason to be considered a hero. But I can definitely tell you from my own experience, my own feelings, my own PTSD, and my friends, that I think for some of those people it would have been easier to lose a different part of their body and not resist to that sleepless night, the nightmares, the horrors. So PTSD today is an easier thing to talk about. Back then, no support system.
And this appreciation is part of that, to recognize the heroism of the community and also to raise awareness for the needs to continue providing support?
Absolutely. This appreciation is to raise awareness and to help continue the amazing work that the Hal Disabled Veterans Organization is already doing, but needs to do so much more. There are 50,000 disabled men and women, war veterans, that are living right now in Israel and that need constant support with sport, with art therapy, with just meetings. There is a national program called Achiad, who provides a program for PTSD and an environment that people can feel comfortable with one another. It's not a therapeutical group, it's a friends group. So the Hal Disabled Veterans Organization needs to be recognized for all the hard work it's doing with those amazing veterans, and needs to be able to continue doing this amazing work and even enlarge it.
Dana Pinchasov on Appreciation Day for Disabled IDF Veterans and Victims of Terror. And now this song, Magia Li Tov, I Deserve Good, by Aya Zahavi Feiglin.
כמה פעמים לנבוח על העץ, העץ הלא נכון, ככה נשארים צרודים. למדתי לאכול את הפירורים של מישהו אחר, צריך אומץ גדול לוותר. הכי טוב, רק טוב.
Aya Zahavi Feiglin. The state memorial ceremony marking 65 years since the Sinai campaign was held at Mount Herzl today. President Isaac Herzog said that the 1956 war was an important historic milestone for the state of Israel. It made clear to our enemies and the world that we are here to stay, President Herzog said. Thanks to the victory in the Sinai, Israeli deterrence was restored and we gained a decade of relative calm in terms of security. These were vital years for the military, economic, and diplomatic entrenchment of the state of Israel. Israel was busy making our towns bloom, absorbing immigration, building and growing strong. The battles of Suez influenced not only the results of the campaign, they also influenced, no less importantly, the character of the IDF soldiers and commanders. President Herzog concluded by quoting from Yechiel Mar's poem that became the anthem of the Sinai campaign, "It's not a fable, my friend, nor a passing dream." And here's that famous song from that period, Hine Mul Har Sinai, here before Mount Sinai, this version sung by Theodore Bickel.
שיר בפקדודי עמים ושערי העיר ויאנשים שונים או שלהבת יין הנהרים או שלהבת יבירום המנועים עוד יסופר על זה היום החי בשובם אל מעמד סיני או שלהבת יין הנהרים או שלהבת יבירום המנועים עוד יסופר על זה היום החי בשובם אל מעמד סיני והוא לא את השיר דודי בנים ושערי העיר ויאנשים שונים או שלהבת יין הנערים או שלהבת יבירום המנועים עוד יסופר על זה היום החי ושובם אל מעמד סיני או שלהבת יין הנערים או שלהבת יבירום המנועים עוד יסופר על זה היום החי ושובם אל מעמד סיני.
The shekel continues its strength to be strengthened against the dollar, and the Bank of Israel has reportedly intervened, albeit quietly, to halt the shekel's appreciation. Globes reported that the Bank of Israel purchased foreign currency with the aim of returning its exchange rate to 3.2 shekels to the dollar. The Manufacturers Association of Israel has called an emergency meeting for tomorrow to discuss the potentially disastrous effect on the shekel's appreciation for the country's exporters. An auction house in Jerusalem is reported to be offering for sale a set of needle systems used to tattoo numbers on the arms of Jewish prisoners in the Auschwitz extermination camp. The collection includes metal stamps with needles in the shape of numbers connected to them. The wear on them indicates the amount of work that was done with them. They are also offering for sale the marketing and operational booklet supplied to the Nazis from the company A Skupla. Tzolman Auctions stated that it was a shocking and extremely rare museum item, unmatched in its historical significance, and it is estimated that it will sell for roughly $30,000 to $40,000, Ynet reported. The auction house commission is 25%. There are only a few collections of this sort around the world. One is located in the Military Museum in St. Petersburg, Russia, and another in the museum operating at the memorial site where the Auschwitz camp was located. The place of historical items from the Holocaust period is in the Yad Vashem collection. Danny Dayan, the chairman of Yad Vashem, was quoted as telling Ynet, "Here they are preserved, researched, and serve as historical testimony to scholars and the general public." The Israel Atomic Energy Committee has decided not to allow the publication of the documents in its archive and to extend their censorship for another 50 years from the time they were drafted. The move was made out of fear of harming the vital interests of the state, it said. The matter was brought before Prime Minister Bennett, who approved the committee's recommendation to change the law in order to extend the period the documents can remain sealed to 90 years. A Jerusalem magistrate's court judge says that the head of the Shuva Banim Hasidic sect, Eliezer Berland, has linked himself to allegations against him regarding the murders of two men, Nissim Shitrit and Avraham Edry, more than 30 years ago. Berland, who is already serving a prison sentence for fraud and money laundering, was arrested yesterday in connection with the crimes. He has been remanded in custody for 9 days. Air raid sirens are scheduled to sound in cities and towns across the country tomorrow as part of a national home front preparedness exercise being held by the Israel Defense Forces and Defense Ministry. The first round of alerts in towns and villages was set to be heard from 10:05 a.m. to 10:45, and the second round in larger cities from 6:05 p.m. to 6:45. In addition to the sirens, messages are to be sent out through the IDF's Homefront Command application, and alerts were to be heard on the radio, television, and some websites. In case of an actual emergency, the air raid sirens will sound twice, the Army said. Here's a song, Reilach Be'enaim, See You in the Eyes, by Eti Ankri.
כתוב בגדול, היית מרשה לי, מוחל על הכל, אני רואה לך בעיניים, אני רואה את הכל, היית אוהב אותי כמו שאיש לא יכול, הייתי משוטטת בין הקירות, הייתי עושה בם צורות שיהיו לי שמיים, רואה לך בעיניים
Taking a look at the weather, and the Cannes weather team says temperatures will be seasonable tomorrow and slightly warmer on Thursday. In the afternoon, strong northerly winds will prevail along the coast. Friday and Saturday will be hot and dry across the country. Temperatures forecast for tonight and tomorrow: Jerusalem 16 to 22, Tel Aviv 21 to 26, Haifa 19 to 23, Tzfat 15 to 21, Beersheba 18 to 28, and in Eilat from 23 tonight going up to 29 degrees centigrade tomorrow. Now another look at the main stories today. Israel reports a COVID-19 outbreak after 80 Chinese workers test positive in the north. British Prime Minister apologizes to Energy Minister Karine El-Harar over wheelchair access at the UN Climate Summit. Palestinians reject compromise that would have allowed them to remain in the Sheikh Jarrah houses despite eviction orders. The Knesset begins debate on the proposed state budget, with a vote expected only at the weekend. A Syrian bunker from the 1967 war is uncovered on the Golan Heights and is filled with munitions and explosives, and the weather warmer. That's the news. Join us again tomorrow night at 8 p.m. on Kan Reka, the foreign languages channel of the Israeli Public Broadcasting Corporation. Watch our 2 p.m. news flash on the Kan English Facebook page, or write to us at kanenglish@kan.org.il. Together with sound engineer Yuval Yesod, this is Aryeh O'Sullivan wishing you a good evening and shalom.